The story of Until Dawn doesn't begin in 2014 or 2015. It begins over 150 years ago, with the indigenous people who lived on Blackwood Mountain long before European settlers arrived. According to Cree legend, the Wendigo is a malevolent spirit that possesses humans who resort to cannibalism. The transformation is irreversible. Once a person consumes human flesh, especially during times of starvation or extreme hardship, they become cursed. Their humanity is stripped away, replaced by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The Wendigo is not just a monster. It's a cautionary tale about the darkest depths of human survival instinct, about what happens when desperation overrides morality. In the harsh winters of northern Canada and the United States, when food was scarce and temperatures could kill in minutes, the temptation to survive at any cost became very real. The curse has specific characteristics. A Wendigo retains fragments of human intelligence, but loses all empathy, all moral reasoning. They become impossibly strong, incredibly fast, and virtually unkillable by normal means. Their bodies transform over time, becoming gaunt, skeletal, with elongated limbs and pale, corpse-like skin. But most terrifying of all, they can never be satisfied. No amount of flesh will ever fill the void. The hunger is eternal. Blackwood Mountain, located in Western Canada, was sacred ground to the indigenous people for a very specific reason. They knew about the curse. They knew what lived in the mountain, and they knew the danger of disturbing certain places. The mountain had caves, deep caves that stretched into the earth like veins through stone. And in those caves, something had happened long ago. Something that created the first Wendigos.
In 1952, the Canadian government decided that Blackwood Mountain would be the perfect location for a sanatorium, a place to treat patients with tuberculosis and other respiratory diseases. The mountain air was clean, the location remote enough to quarantine patients, and the natural hot springs provided therapeutic benefits. They built an impressive facility, multiple buildings connected by underground tunnels to protect patients and staff from the brutal winter weather. It was state-of-the-art for its time, designed to house up to 200 patients and 50 staff members. What the government didn't know, or chose to ignore, was the mountain's history. The indigenous people tried to warn them. There were places on this mountain that should not be disturbed, caves that should remain sealed. But progress doesn't listen to legends. The sanatorium operated normally for about 2 years. Then, in the winter of 1954, something went wrong. Catastrophically wrong. A mining accident occurred in February 1954. A group of workers who'd been digging exploratory tunnels for a potential ore extraction operation broke through into a natural cave system. The cave system connected to the sanatorium's underground tunnels, and what was in those caves had been waiting a very long time. The details are fragmentary, pieced together from scattered records and journal entries found decades later, but the timeline is clear. February 12, 1954, mining accident opens cave system. 3 workers go missing. February 15, 1954, sanatorium reports unusual sounds in the underground tunnels. Security investigates, finds nothing. February 18, 1954, first patient disappears from their room overnight. No signs of forced entry. Patient's bed shows signs of struggle, but no blood. February 22, 1954, 3 more patients missing. Staff begins panic. Doors are reinforced. Guards posted in hallways. February 28, 1954, 7 patients and 2 staff members missing. Survivors report hearing scratching in the walls, seeing shadows moving in the tunnels. Emergency evacuation is ordered. March 3, 1954. Evacuation fails. 32 people dead. Survivors describe creatures, impossible beings, attacking from the darkness. The description matches Wendigo legend perfectly. March 5, 1954. Military arrives. Building is sealed. Official story: tuberculosis outbreak. Facility contaminated. All personnel lost to disease. The truth was far worse. The mining accident had opened a cave system that housed Wendigos, creatures that had been trapped or dormant for potentially centuries. When the caves were breached, they were released into the sanatorium's tunnel system. Patients and staff were attacked. Some were killed immediately. Others were taken into the caves. And some, in their desperation to survive while trapped in those tunnels, resorted to cannibalism. They ate the dead to stay alive. Those who consumed human flesh became Wendigos themselves. The curse spread. By the time the military arrived, there were at least a dozen Wendigos in those tunnels. The government's solution was containment. They sealed the sanatorium, collapsed certain tunnel entrances, and declared the area forbidden. They established a monitoring protocol through a mysterious organization known only as the Collective in the game's lore. This group's job was to ensure the Wendigos remained contained and to prevent anyone from discovering the truth. One man became obsessed with the Wendigos, Dr. Alan J. Hill, a psychiatrist who'd been researching the psychological effects of extreme isolation and trauma. He'd heard rumors about what happened at the sanatorium. He began investigating, collecting evidence, interviewing the few survivors who'd been sworn to secrecy. Dr. Hill discovered something that terrified and fascinated him. The Wendigos weren't mindless monsters. They retained fragments of their human consciousness. They could recognize places they'd been, people they'd known. The curse preserved memory as it destroyed humanity. Dr. Hill spent decades studying the Wendigos from a distance, documenting their behavior, trying to understand the curse. He established a hidden observation post on Blackwood Mountain. He became, in essence, the unofficial guardian of the mountain's terrible secret. By 2014, Dr. Hill was elderly, his mind fractured by years of isolation and obsession. But he was still watching, still documenting, still trying to prevent another tragedy.
The Washington family purchased property on Blackwood Mountain in the late 1990s. Robert Washington, a successful film producer, wanted a private retreat for his family, somewhere away from Hollywood, away from the pressures of his career, where his children could experience nature and normalcy. He built an impressive lodge on the mountain's eastern slope, modern, luxurious, but designed to blend with the environment. The lodge became the Washington family's winter retreat. Every year they'd spend the holidays there, inviting friends, hosting parties. Robert and his wife had 3 children. Josh, the oldest, born in 1992, then the twins, Hannah and Beth, born in 1995. By all accounts, they were a close family. Josh was protective of his younger sisters. The twins were inseparable. Josh struggled with mental health issues from a young age. Depression, anxiety, and eventually diagnosed with a condition that required medication and therapy. But on the mountain, surrounded by nature and away from triggers, he seemed to improve. The lodge was his sanctuary. Hannah was sensitive, romantic, and desperately wanted to be accepted by her brother's friends. She had a crush on Mike, one of Josh's best friends from high school. It was an innocent crush, the kind teenagers have, but it would have devastating consequences. Beth was the strong one, practical, protective, especially of Hannah. She saw how her sister was sometimes treated by the group, how certain people could be casually cruel. Beth didn't tolerate that. She stood up for Hannah, always. In early 2014, the Washington family opened the lodge for a winter weekend gathering. Josh invited his entire friend group, 8 friends, all around 18 to 20 years old, looking forward to a weekend of partying, drinking, and mountain adventures. The group consisted of Mike, the charismatic one, natural leader; Emily, Mike's girlfriend at the time, sharp-tongued and competitive; Jessica, Mike's later love interest, flirtatious and attention-seeking; Matt, Emily's later boyfriend, athletic but somewhat passive; Ashley, sweet and insecure, close to Josh; Chris, Josh's best friend, nerdy and loyal; Sam, the moral center of the group, Hannah's closest friend; and the twins, Hannah and Beth. What happened that night on February 2nd, 2014 would haunt the survivors forever.
The evening started normally. Everyone arrived at the lodge, settling in, drinking, playing games. The atmosphere was festive. Josh had planned activities, prepared the lodge, stocked plenty of alcohol and food. Hannah was happy. Mike had been paying attention to her, being friendly, making her feel included. Her crush intensified. She interpreted his kindness as reciprocal interest. She didn't realize she was being set up. Emily, Jessica, Ashley, and Matt had planned a prank. The details were worked out in advance, though the level of cruelty varied depending on who was involved. Emily seemed to be the driving force, with Jessica enthusiastically participating. Ashley went along with it reluctantly. Matt was uncomfortable but didn't stop it. The plan was simple and devastating. They would make Hannah think Mike was interested in her romantically. They'd arrange for her to meet him in a bedroom, expecting a romantic encounter. Then they'd reveal it was all a joke, humiliating her in front of the group. Mike, notably, wasn't fully aware of the plan's cruelty. He thought it was just playful teasing. He didn't realize how far they intended to take it. Late in the evening, Jessica approached Hannah. She told her that Mike wanted to meet her upstairs in one of the guest bedrooms, that he'd been talking about her, that he was interested, that Hannah should go up there and make a move. Hannah, thrilled and nervous, went upstairs. She found what appeared to be Mike waiting in the darkened bedroom. She began trying to be seductive, awkward but earnest, believing this was her moment. The lights came on. The figure in the bed wasn't Mike. It was a setup. Emily, Jessica, Ashley, and Matt had emerged from hiding, cameras out, laughing. They'd filmed Hannah's attempt at seduction. They mocked her, called her desperate, told her no one would ever actually be interested in her. Hannah's world collapsed. The humiliation was total. Her crush, her confidence, her trust in people she considered friends, all shattered in seconds. Beth heard the commotion and came running. She found Hannah crying, the others laughing, and immediately understood what had happened. Beth was furious. She confronted the group, demanded they delete the footage, called them cruel and heartless. But the damage was done. Hannah was destroyed. She ran from the lodge, out into the night, wearing inadequate clothing for the freezing temperatures. Beth immediately chased after her, not even stopping to grab a proper coat. The temperature that night was well below freezing. Snow was falling heavily, visibility was near zero. These were conditions that killed experienced mountaineers. The others realized too late how serious the situation was. Josh had been passed out drunk in another room, completely unaware of the prank. When Sam found him and explained what happened, he immediately organized a search. But precious time had been lost. Josh, Sam, Chris, and Mike went out into the storm looking for the twins. They searched for hours. They found no trace. What actually happened to Hannah and Beth is one of the most tragic sequences in the game. and the inciting incident for everything that follows.
Hannah ran blindly into the storm. She was emotionally devastated, crying, not thinking clearly. She just wanted to get away, to escape the humiliation, to disappear. Beth caught up to her, about half a mile from the lodge, near a cliff edge. Beth grabbed Hannah, tried to calm her down, tried to get her to come back. But Hannah was hysterical, pulling away, moving dangerously close to the edge. The ground beneath them gave way. A section of the cliff, weakened by snow and ice, collapsed. Both twins fell, tumbling down the mountainside. They should have died in the fall. Somehow they survived the initial tumble, crashing through trees and snow, eventually sliding down into a ravine. Beth landed hard, but conscious. She'd broken her leg, possibly ribs. Hannah was unconscious nearby, breathing but injured. They were at the bottom of a deep ravine, hidden from view, in sub-zero temperatures. Beth tried to call for help, but her phone had been destroyed in the fall. She tried to climb out, but her leg couldn't support her weight. She managed to move Hannah to a slightly more sheltered position against a rock face, trying to keep her sister warm with their combined body heat. Hours passed. The storm continued. Beth knew they were dying. Hypothermia was setting in. Hannah hadn't regained consciousness. Beth kept talking to her, kept trying to keep them both alive, but she could feel herself fading. Then she heard something. Sounds in the darkness. Movement. She called out, hoping it was rescue. It wasn't rescue. Something emerged from a cave entrance in the ravine wall. Something that had once been human. A Wendigo, attracted by their presence, by the scent of blood and fear. Beth saw it. She understood, in that moment of pure terror, that they weren't alone on this mountain, that something impossible existed here. The Wendigo moved toward them with horrifying speed. Beth tried to protect Hannah, tried to fight it off with her broken body. The Wendigo grabbed Beth, and she made a decision. She had a lighter in her pocket. She sparked it, creating a small flame. Wendigos, she somehow instinctively understood, feared fire. The distraction worked briefly. The creature recoiled from the flame. In that moment, Beth managed to push Hannah further into the cave system, away from immediate danger. But the lighter went out. The Wendigo took Beth. The last thing she heard was Hannah screaming her name, finally conscious, witnessing her sister being dragged into the darkness. Beth Washington died that night, killed by a Wendigo in the caves beneath Blackwood Mountain. Her body was never found. The official investigation concluded that both twins had fallen and died of exposure, their bodies lost in the mountain wilderness. But Hannah didn't die that night, not immediately. Hannah survived the Wendigo attack because Beth's sacrifice gave her time to crawl deeper into the cave system. She was badly injured, traumatized, and completely alone in absolute darkness, but she was alive. For weeks, Hannah survived in those caves. She had access to a natural spring for water, but there was no food, nothing to eat. Temperature underground was just above freezing, cold enough to slow metabolism, but not cold enough to kill quickly. Hannah left messages. She found old mining equipment, journals left by sanatorium workers decades ago, and she wrote desperate messages to anyone who might find her, messages to her family, messages documenting her slow descent into starvation and madness. The entries are heartbreaking. At first, she's hopeful, certain rescue is coming, then confused why no one has found her, then angry, then desperate, then accepting that she's going to die. The final entries show her mental collapse. She writes about the hunger, about finding her sister's remains, and about the impossible choice facing her. Hannah found Beth's body. The Wendigo had left it partially consumed, and Hannah, starving, insane with hunger and grief, made the terrible decision that would doom her. She ate her sister's flesh to survive. The moment she did, the curse took hold. The transformation began. Hannah Washington became a Wendigo. But because she was recently transformed, she retained more humanity than most. She recognized the lodge, she remembered her family, and deep in her Wendigo mind, she remembered the people who had driven her into the storm. She remembered the prank. And while her Wendigo instincts drove her to hunt and feed, her lingering human consciousness directed that hunting toward specific targets. She wanted revenge. Even as a monster, Hannah wanted revenge. For a year, she survived in those caves, hunting small animals, occasionally taking a hiker who wandered too close, growing stronger, more monstrous, more consumed by the curse. She waited, and in February 2015, exactly 1 year after the tragedy, her opportunity would come.
The year following the twins' disappearance destroyed the Washington family. Robert and his wife separated, unable to cope with the grief and blame. The official investigation concluded the twins died of exposure, but their bodies were never recovered. The mountain was searched extensively, but the ravine where they'd fallen and the caves where Hannah had survived were never found. Josh took it the hardest. He'd been passed out drunk during the prank. He'd woken up to find his sisters gone, a search party failing to find them, and slowly learning what had driven Hannah into the storm. His mental health, already fragile, collapsed completely. He was hospitalized briefly, put on stronger medications, and underwent intensive therapy. But nothing helped. The guilt consumed him. His sisters were dead because of a prank, because his friends had been cruel, because he hadn't been there to protect them. Josh stopped taking his medication. He began planning something that his broken mind saw as justice, but was really just revenge, dressed up in psychological torture. He invited everyone back to the lodge for the 1-year anniversary. He framed it as a memorial, a way to honor his sisters and try to move forward together as friends. Most of the group felt too guilty to refuse. They'd spent the year carrying their own guilt about the prank and its consequences. Sam felt guilty for not stopping the prank. Chris felt guilty for not finding the twins that night. Mike felt guilty for being part of the setup, even if he hadn't understood how cruel it would be. Emily and Jessica felt varying levels of guilt depending on their capacity for self-reflection. They all came back to Blackwood Mountain in February 2015, all except Josh's parents, who couldn't bear to return. Josh told them he wanted to do this with his friends, that it would help him heal. They didn't know he'd stopped taking his medication. They didn't know what he was planning. Josh had spent months designing an elaborate prank of his own. But this wasn't a simple humiliation. This was psychological warfare. He was going to make them feel what Hannah felt. He was going to make them experience fear, helplessness, and betrayal. He was going to hurt them. He'd studied horror films obsessively. His father's career had given him access to props, fake blood, special effects equipment. Josh had tools and knowledge that most people would never have. He'd transformed the lodge and surrounding buildings into a stage for his revenge. He'd also explored the mountain more thoroughly than anyone else, searching obsessively for any trace of his sisters. In that exploration, he'd found some of the old sanatorium buildings. He'd found Dr. Hill's research notes. He'd learned about the Wendigos. Josh didn't believe in the Wendigos. He thought it was legend, mental illness, hysteria. He dismissed the evidence as the delusions of crazy people. This dismissal would be his fatal mistake.
The game begins with Sam, the player's first controlled character, arriving at the cable car station that provides access to the Washington property. It's late afternoon on February 1st, 2015, exactly 1 year minus 1 day from the tragedy. As Sam rides the cable car up the mountain, we learn, through her discovery of a journal, that there's concern about Josh's mental state. She's been in contact with him,
trying to be supportive, but he's been erratic and strange. She's worried about this weekend, but hopes it will provide closure. The other characters arrive throughout the evening. Mike brings his new girlfriend Jessica, which creates immediate tension with his ex Emily, who's now dating Matt. Chris arrives as Josh's best friend and moral support. Ashley comes out of loyalty to Chris and Josh. Everyone's uncomfortable, haunted by what happened last year, trying to pretend things can be normal again. Josh seems manic, overly energetic, drinking heavily. He proposes they party like old times, try to create good memories to replace the bad ones. Some of the group goes along with it. Others, like Sam, are concerned but don't want to make things worse by challenging him. The first night passes with rising tension. Old grievances surface. Emily and Jessica fight over Mike. Matt feels insecure about Emily's past with Mike. Ashley and Chris dance around their obvious feelings for each other. Sam tries to keep everyone calm. Josh watches it all with barely contained rage, hidden behind a manic smile. The next morning, things escalate rapidly. Josh initiates his plan. Using fake evidence, special effects, and his knowledge of the lodge's layout, he begins staging a horror scenario. He wants them to believe a killer is on the mountain hunting them, making them choose who lives and who dies. His specific targets are those most directly responsible for the prank: Emily, Jessica, Ashley, and Matt. But he's willing to terrify everyone in the process. Sam and Chris will be tools in his game, forced to make impossible choices that he'll reveal later were fake. Josh kidnaps Ashley and Chris, stages an elaborate scene in the lodge's basement where he appears to murder Ashley with a saw blade. Chris is forced to choose between saving Ashley or Josh. The scene is brutal, traumatizing, designed to break Chris emotionally. Only later is it revealed that Ashley wasn't really hurt, that the blood and gore were special effects. He creates scenarios where Mike and Jessica are chased through the woods by what appears to be a psychotic killer, where Emily and Matt face danger at a radio tower, where Sam is stalked through the lodge. Every scenario is designed to make them feel fear, to make them understand what Hannah and Beth must have felt: hunted, helpless, betrayed by people they trusted. Josh's plan is technically successful. He terrifies everyone. He creates genuine trauma. He forces them to face their guilt in the most visceral way possible. But he makes a critical error. He's so focused on his psychological revenge that he doesn't realize the real danger on the mountain. He doesn't believe in the Wendigos. He dismisses the warning signs, the evidence, the legends. And the Wendigos, drawn by all the activity, all the noise and light and fear, begin to move.
While Josh is playing his elaborate revenge game, real horror emerges from the caves. The Wendigos, which have been relatively dormant, are drawn out by the presence of so many potential victims. There are multiple Wendigos on Blackwood Mountain. Hannah is one of them, but not the only one. The Wendigos from the sanatorium, who've survived for over 60 years in the caves, are still there, still hunting, still hungry. Jessica is the first to encounter a real Wendigo. Mike has taken her to a guest cabin for privacy, away from the group drama. They're relaxing when something begins attacking the cabin. What they think might be Josh's prank quickly reveals itself as something far more dangerous. A Wendigo smashes through the cabin, attacks Jessica, and drags her away into the mines. Mike chases after them, descending into the old mining tunnels beneath the mountain. What he finds there makes him realize this isn't a prank. The mines are full of bodies, evidence of decades of killings, and creatures that shouldn't exist. Jessica can survive or die depending on player choices, but either way, the encounter reveals the truth. The monster in this story isn't Josh. Josh is just a broken kid playing a cruel game. The real monsters are the Wendigos. Emily and Matt face a Wendigo at the radio tower. The creature is impossibly fast, incredibly strong, and completely focused on killing them. They barely escape, and in the process, they begin to understand that something is very, very wrong on this mountain. The group starts to come together, comparing notes, realizing that they're facing something beyond their understanding. But they're scattered across the mountain, vulnerable, and the Wendigos are hunting. Josh's revenge game collapses completely when he's captured by Hannah. She recognizes him as her brother, even in her Wendigo state, but her instincts war with her remaining humanity. She drags him to the sanatorium, a place that has meaning in her fragmented memory. The group finds Dr. Hill's research in the sanatorium. They learn about the Wendigo curse, about what happened in 1952, about how to fight these creatures. Fire is the key. Wendigos are terrified of fire, and it's one of the few things that can kill them. They also find evidence of Hannah's survival and transformation. Beth's head, preserved in Hannah's dwelling. Journal entries documenting Hannah's descent into cannibalism and the curse. The horrifying realization that one of the Wendigos hunting them is their friend. This revelation breaks them in different ways. Sam, who is Hannah's closest friend, is devastated. Josh, if he survives to learn the truth, loses what's left of his sanity. The others are simply terrified, understanding that the prank's consequences were far worse than they imagined. The final hours on the mountain become a desperate fight for survival.
As dawn approaches, the surviving characters gather at the lodge. It's the most defensible position, and they know rescue will come at first light. They just have to survive a few more hours. But the Wendigos are hunting in force now. Multiple creatures converge on the lodge, drawn by the concentration of potential prey. The survivors barricade themselves inside, using what weapons they can find, trying to create enough light and fire to keep the creatures at bay. This is where the butterfly effect truly matters. Every decision made throughout the game determines who's alive at this point, who has what equipment, what condition they're in physically and mentally. A character who lost a weapon earlier might be defenseless now. Someone who was injured might be slower, easier prey. The standoff is tense and terrifying. The Wendigos test the lodge's defenses, finding weak points, trying to get inside. The survivors must work together, using fire, light, and whatever makeshift weapons they have to hold them off. Hannah is among the Wendigos, but she's different. She approaches the lodge with something that might be recognition. Sam realizes that Hannah is trying not to attack them, that she's fighting her Wendigo instincts. If Josh survived and is at the lodge, Hannah focuses on him specifically, drawn to her brother even in her monstrous state. The game presents a crucial moral choice. Do the survivors try to save Hannah, to somehow contain her and hope for a cure? Or do they treat her as just another monster that needs to be destroyed? There's no cure. Once someone becomes a Wendigo, they're lost. But Sam, out of loyalty to her friend, might try anyway. This compassion can get people killed.
Rescue is approaching. The survivors have called for help, and helicopters are minutes away. They just have to hold on a little longer. But the lodge is compromised. The Wendigos have found ways in. Fire is spreading from the barricades and defensive measures. The building is becoming unsafe, but going outside means facing the Wendigos in the open. The game's final sequence revolves around a desperate gambit. The survivors realize they can lure all the Wendigos into one location and trap them with fire. The lodge has a gas line that, if ruptured and ignited, will cause a massive explosion. If they can get all the Wendigos inside and blow the building, they can eliminate the threat. But someone needs to stay behind to trigger the explosion at the right moment. Someone needs to sacrifice themselves, or at least risk sacrifice, to save the others. The choice of who stays depends on who's alive and who's in the best position. Often, it falls to Sam, the character who's been the moral center throughout. She volunteers to be the bait, to keep the Wendigos focused on her while the others escape, then detonate the gas at the last possible moment. The sequence is brutally tense. Sam must stay perfectly still while Wendigos move around her. The creatures hunt by movement. If she panics, if she runs too soon, she dies. But if she waits too long, she won't escape the explosion. Players must execute perfect timing and nerve-wracking stealth. One wrong move, one button pressed too soon or too late, and Sam dies. Or worse, she detonates too early, and the Wendigos escape to kill the others. If executed correctly, Sam lures the Wendigos into the lodge, waits until they're all inside, then triggers the gas explosion and runs. The lodge explodes in a fireball, visible for miles. The Wendigos inside are incinerated. The survivors outside watch their sanctuary burn, traumatized but alive.
Rescue arrives at dawn. Emergency services find the survivors in various states of trauma, covered in blood and soot, many injured, all mentally shattered. The Washington Lodge is destroyed, burning debris scattered across the mountainside. The survivors are evacuated, treated for injuries and shock. Police begin investigating what happened on the mountain. The survivors' stories are confused, contradictory, filled with impossible claims about monsters and curses. The official investigation struggles to make sense of the evidence. Multiple deaths, a destroyed building, witnesses claiming supernatural attacks. Some authorities dismiss it as mass hysteria, drug-fueled hallucinations, or elaborate hoax. Others, particularly those who know the mountain's history, quietly acknowledge the truth but work to suppress it. The bodies of those who didn't survive are recovered where possible. Jessica, if she died, is found in the mines. Matt and Emily, if they died at various points, are recovered from their locations. Josh, if he died or was taken by Wendigos, might never be found. The fate of Josh is particularly tragic. If he survives to the end, he's likely institutionalized, his mental break complete. He lives with the knowledge that his revenge game unleashed real horror, got his friends killed, and failed to bring his sisters back. If he was taken by Hannah and survived, he might become a Wendigo himself, continuing the curse. Hannah's fate depends on player choices. In most scenarios, she dies in the lodge explosion, finally released from the curse. Some players see this as mercy. Others see it as the final tragedy of the Washington family. 3 siblings lost to a cycle of cruelty and revenge. The surviving characters carry the trauma forever. Mike, if he survives, becomes somber and guilt-ridden, no longer the confident charmer. Ashley faces legal questions about some of her actions during the crisis. Ashley and Chris, if both survive, have their relationship either strengthened or destroyed by what they experienced. Sam, if she survives, becomes an advocate for preventing similar tragedies, trying to find meaning in the horror. The mountain is quarantined officially, declared unsafe due to structural instabilities and potential geological hazards. Unofficially, authorities who know the truth ensure no one else can access the area. The caves are sealed with explosives. The remaining sanatorium buildings are demolished. Blackwood Mountain is erased from tourist maps. Dr. Hill, if he survived, provides testimony that's largely dismissed as the ramblings of a mentally ill hermit. But his documentation is quietly collected by the same shadowy organizations that have been monitoring the mountain since 1952. The Wendigo threat is contained, officially denied,
and buried under layers of classification. Years later, the survivors rarely speak to each other. The shared trauma is too intense, the guilt too heavy, the memories too painful. Some have attempted to tell their story publicly, but were discredited or silenced. Others have taken the secret to their graves. The indigenous people whose land Blackwood Mountain once was are not surprised by the tragedy. They warned against disturbing the mountain. They knew the cost of ignoring the old ways, the old warnings. Another group of outsiders learned the hard way that some curses are real and some places should be left alone.